You don't have to do this, son. I can call someone. I have money. The old man's voice was thin like paper left too long in the sun. He stood beside his broken-down Cadillac on the shoulder of Route 9, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped his cane. His white shirt was pressed perfectly, the kind of man who still dressed with dignity even on ordinary mornings. Colt Mercer wiped the grease from his hands onto his worn work rag and looked up from under the hood. 33 years old, eyes the color of winter sky, and a quiet in him that most people had to earn through decades of hard living. He had earned it young. "Sir, I'm already here," Colt said simply, "and your alternator's not going to fix itself." The old man, who had introduced himself only as Warren, watched him with careful eyes. Not suspicious exactly, more like studying. The way a man looks at something rare he isn't. Sure, he deserves to find. Colt had been driving back from a parts run when he spotted the Cadillac with its hazards blinking like a tired heartbeat. He'd pulled over without thinking. That was just who he was. His mother had called it a reflex. His ex-girlfriend had called it a flaw. Colt called it nothing. It simply was. His shop, Mercer Auto, sat 3 miles down the road. Technically his, though the bank held more of it than he did. 14-hour days. A broken furnace he'd been ignoring since January. A drawer full of invoices he'd discounted because he knew the families who brought their cars in, knew their situations, knew that $40 could mean the difference between groceries and an empty table. He was broke in the way that good people so often are. Not from laziness, but from giving too much of what little they had. He didn't tell Warren any of this. He just worked. An hour passed. The September light shifted gold across the asphalt. Warren stood quietly nearby, occasionally offering to call someone, occasionally just watching. At one point, he said almost to himself, "My wife used to say the measure of a man is what he does when no one's looking." Colt didn't look up. "She sounds like she was a wise woman." "She was," Warren said softly. "She was everything." Something in that sentence made Colt pause, just for a moment, before turning back to the engine. When it was finished, Colt closed the hood with a gentle click and told Warren the car would run fine now. Warren reached into his jacket for his wallet. Colt shook his head. "Put that away, sir." Warren blinked. "Son, I insist, and I respectfully decline." Colt smiled, the kind of smile that didn't need any words behind it. "Drive safe. It gets dark early now." Warren stood there for a long moment, wallet still in his hand, watching Colt walk back to his truck. And if Colt had turned around, he might have seen something remarkable on the old man's face. Not just gratitude, something older than gratitude. Something that looked a great deal like grief finally easing. 3 weeks passed. Colt was under a pickup truck on a Tuesday when he heard the shop door open. He rolled out, expecting Mrs. Danforth and her perennial brake problems. Instead, he found a young woman standing in the entrance, maybe 26, dark-haired, wearing a coat that cost more than his monthly rent. She had Warren's same careful eyes. "Mr. Mercer?" she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were clasped tight. "My name is Sloan Whitfield. You helped my father 3 weeks ago on Route 9. Colt stood slowly, wiping his hands. "Warren's your father." "Warren Whitfield," she said quietly. And she watched his face for the recognition that didn't come, because Colt never followed financial news, never cared much for names attached to dollar amounts. What she told him next rearranged the air in the room. Warren Whitfield had built an empire over 50 years. Logistics, real estate, manufacturing. He was worth more than most people could imagine. And for the past 2 years, quietly, without telling a soul, he had been doing this. Driving his own car to unfamiliar towns, engineering small breakdowns, waiting to see who stopped. Who helped? Who asked for payment? Who walked away? He called it nothing formal. He simply believed that the rarest thing left in the world was genuine goodness, and that genuine goodness deserved to be found. Colt was very still. "He wants to meet with you," Sloan said. "Formally. He has a proposal." "I didn't fix his car for a proposal," Colt said. His voice was quiet but firm. Sloane looked at him for a long moment. Then something shifted in her expression. Something softened in a way that seemed to surprise even her. "I know," she said. "That's exactly why he wants to meet with you." They met at a quiet restaurant, Warren in his perfectly pressed shirt, Sloane beside him, Colt in the only clean flannel he owned. Warren looked different sitting across a table, smaller somehow, and more real. "I owe you an explanation," Warren said. "You don't owe me anything," Colt replied. Warren smiled, the same smile Colt now realized Sloane had inherited. "That," Warren said softly, "is precisely the problem with people like you, son. You never think anyone owes you a thing." He paused, folding his hands. "My wife died 4 years ago. Before she went, she made me promise that whatever I left behind would go somewhere worthy. Not somewhere impressive, somewhere worthy." His voice caught slightly on the last word. "I've been looking for a while." Colt looked down at the table. Something was rising in his chest that he didn't quite have a name for. Warren continued. "I'm not offering you charity. I want to invest in your shop, fully, a real partnership. You run it your way. I simply want good work to survive in the world." The silence between them was long and honest. Finally, Colt said, "Why me?" Warren met his eyes. "Because you fixed a stranger's car in the middle of nowhere, refused payment, and walked away like it was nothing. Because you didn't know who I was." He paused. "Because my wife would have trusted you immediately." Colt felt something in his throat. He nodded once, slowly, the way a man agrees to something that matters. Months later, Mercer Auto had a new sign, new equipment, and a waiting list. But the prices stayed low. The discounts for struggling families stayed. Colt stayed exactly who he had always been. Only now, the furnace worked. Sloane came by sometimes, at first on her father's behalf. Then just because she and Colt moved slowly, two careful people who had both been shaped by loss, sharing coffee, sharing silence, sharing the particular language of people who notice the small things. One afternoon, Warren sat in the old chair by the shop window, the one Colt had kept from the original space, and watched his daughter laugh at something Colt said over an engine. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said to no one in particular, "There she is," as if his wife had asked him to find something, and after all this time, he finally had. Kindness is rarely loud. It doesn't announce itself or wait for applause. It fixes an alternator on a quiet road, walks away without looking back, and trusts that goodness, offered freely, always finds its way home. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.